Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our first Industry Insights webinar for 2020. Today, we will be discussing how you can encourage innovation at your firm. My name is Allison Kim, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Latera. Before we begin, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, so in case you would like to reference back to today's topic or the reference links that will be included, and or share it with your colleagues, we will send a follow-up email within the next day that will include today's recording. You will also notice in the side panel under the handout section, we have attached the PDF version of today's presentation, which will include resource links. So feel free to download that and use that if you would like. We will also include it during our follow-up email. If you have any questions, please submit them into our chat panel and we'll address them at the end of today's webinar during the Q&A session. But if we happen to run out of time, we will send a follow-up afterwards. So still don't worry if we run out of time, we will address all of your questions afterwards. Without further ado, please a warm welcome to our presenters, Sherry Capel and Kurt Meltzer.
Thank you, Allison. This is Kurt. Just by way of introduction, I have been in the legal technology field for more than 35 years. I got my law degree, but went straight into applying technology to the practice of law. I've been on the vendor side about half the time, and I've been the top IT person in 4 different law firms. I think the topic today is meaningful because clients are driving innovation within their own organizations, and they expect that those people that they work with, i.e. law firms, need to be innovative in their practices and in the relationship that they have with them. So all of us need to be responsive to the clients or we won't have clients anymore. Sherry?
And I'm Sherry Capel. I too have been working with and alongside the legal community, legal tech community for over 35 years as well. And in fact, I held the role at Legacy Microsystems of Chief Innovation Officer. So this topic is very meaningful to me because I have, for that entire time, encouraged innovation at law firms and certainly want very much to share what we've learned and learn from all of you as well. So the way we're going to unfold our session today is, as you know, whenever you enter any new land, there are new terms, new vocabulary, and new principles to learn, new culture to learn. We're then going to provide to you all some structured process around innovation. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a really exceptional resource for you on that. All of the resources and links are in that handout, and we'll, of course, have time for questions, which, of course, spawn ideas. With that.
So we want to start with defining what innovation means, because it means so many different things to so many people. And there's no right or wrong definition, but we want to be sure that we kind of look at it in a comprehensive fashion. So we have put together a few different definitions. The first one is client-facing. I think this is the one that gets most people excited again because it impacts the client relationship. It can be a business development tool, and it is very often in response to client demand. So when you're bringing innovations to clients, it will impact the service delivery and hopefully create a better client experience. It might make the firm more efficient. It might make the legal department more efficient. It might result in better outcomes for the client. And it might prevent issues for the client. But it's focused on what can make the client result better than the traditional methodology we've been using for delivering legal services. So that is the one that gets most attention, probably most of the press that you read and most of the seminars that you attend. They're going to be talking about client facing. And while we'll do that, we also want to go on and talk about other types of innovation. In business operations, for example, just running the business of a law firm is very challenging. And it doesn't get simpler, it gets more complex because requirements change and clients increase business requirements as well. So introducing change into the business operations is a big one. A lot of people are spending time on workflow solutions, for example, in making sure that you can get more done with fewer people by making sure that the process is outlined and defined clearly, and working together in a more collaborative manner than has been done in the past. So business operations has plenty of room for innovation. The next area is in the IT world. IT is undergoing tremendous transformation, principally because of the cloud and cloud services, which will allow you to deliver things in a much more efficient manner than you have been in the past and use your resources in a more efficient manner. But there's still a great deal of concern in the legal market about security associated with the cloud. So it's kind of held back things in many respects, but recently I think we've seen quite a bit more adoption and embracing of the cloud, and I think we'll continue to see that over time. I think that's just a business reality. It's a more efficient way of doing things done, and once again, clients are leading the way. They're moving entire business operations to the cloud, and there's no reason why their outside counsel shouldn't do the same thing. But the next area of innovation and process and procedures is a little bit less glamorous, but perhaps has more opportunity for impact than the others. When you introduce new technology, unfortunately, many times organizations try to replicate the existing processes with the new technology, even though that new technology has many capabilities that your old technology didn't have. So the innovation can occur around creating new processes and procedures to leverage the capabilities that the tools provide you. But this is maybe harder than changing the buttons that you push or the screens that you see. Getting people to think through the process and change their thought patterns apart from the technology, that's very hard, but enormous opportunities reside there. And it typically will slow down the implementation of a new tool, but it'll result in better utilization of that tool ultimately. And then the fifth type of innovation that we want to touch upon is in the talent area. This is coming to law firms, I think still relatively slowly, but there's some tremendously creative things going on. New types of skills are being introduced into the organization. A lot of people are looking at the data science field and adding data scientists to the organization to help the analysis of not only the data that the firm uses to run its business, but data associated with the client as well. Very briefly, Reed Smith has introduced a new wrinkle in their lawyer recruiting methodology where they look specifically, a certain percentage of their incoming class has significant technology skills and computer backgrounds. And they feel it's an important skill for law firms going forward into the future, and they want to make the investment now. So that's a very innovative approach to recruiting. And we see that type of thing happening in many other parts of the law firm as well. Okay.
Thank you, Kurt. So while innovation takes on very many, different forms where we're going to benefit from it, the initiatives also involve a bit of education. The two overarching principles that we want to talk about right now are being mindful and being deliberate. Yet, before we even get to that point, beginnings are crucial. So where exactly do you start? And that's how we're going to begin. So one of the first principles about innovation and encouraging it at your firm is truly and honestly focus on what you can simplify, making things simpler, removing barriers and obstacles. In fact, this is, if you think about all of the initiatives that we have had at Litera around Litera Desktop, it's taking out all of the digital distractions, making the workflows easier. And then couple that with initiatives, innovation initiatives that are client focused, that improve what we do to deliver service to our clients, and make certain that those benefits are obvious. You'll hear in a little bit how sometimes we thwart ourselves in that regard. The other principle is truly and honestly avoid the shiny new toy syndrome. Focus really on the problem you're solving, not necessarily on the tech tool that is solving it. By doing that, as Kurt said when he mentioned processes and procedures, while it might not be the most glamorous part, it is certainly going to be the part that allows you to deliver the right solution and choose the right tools. And then in that same process, rule things out quickly, rule things that honestly don't solve the problem. You're going to be able to see that more quickly and basically adjust. The shiny new toy syndrome, I know all of you are finding with references to AI and all of the hype that we hear around big new technologies like that. So what I want to, just mention is that it's very hard to not be distracted by that. But what you need to do is to address their questions, educate the lawyers who are bringing these shiny new toys to your attention, and just help to educate them that we need to be a little more mindful about those. Then the sort of last beginning principle that we want to share here is that when you do begin your innovation initiatives, regardless of what the topic is, it's always a great and important idea to begin in small groups. As a matter of fact, proof of concepts are a wonderful way to launch an initiative. But equally, be careful there. Make certain that what you do in that small group is you start by the problem you're solving. You start by understanding and learning more about what is that problem. Because then when you lay the tech in, you can align not only the communication, you have built relationships, you've built rapport, you have great communication with them. The other thing that I want to mention about this is it's really important to set deadlines. Not necessarily because they're going to be hard and fast, but because they create action. They create, they move things forward. But understand that your deadlines aren't going to be hard and fast. You're going to need to be flexible around the demands of the business. And by starting in this small group, what you can begin to do is to create a kind of viral approach to growing the solution. So again, hopefully those are some good ways for you to think about beginning your innovation initiative.
Along the lines of additional principles to keep in mind, we've got two here. First is firm culture assessment. Every law firm has a different culture, not only as a firm, but from one office to the next, and from one practice to the next, and sometimes from one lawyer to the next. So it's not, you're never going to get complete consensus on the best way to approach, but you've got to figure out within your organization, how are we going to get the most bang for our buck? What's the best methodology to use within our organization? And once you embrace what you have instead of bucking up against it, you'll begin to build trust within that organization and help people embrace and understand the reason for change, and your chance of succeeding gets much greater within that structure. So you've got to communicate extensively all the way along the way, make sure people understand why you're changing things, why this innovation is delivering value, not just to the firm, but to its clients and thus to the firm. More communication will help. You cannot really over communicate, because as you've heard many times before, people don't understand what you're saying until at least the 10th time that you say it. So you've got to keep saying it and make that message very, very clear to pave the path for embracing change. Sherry?
So on the side of innovation, there's really, think of it as two theories or two terms that we want to point out here, and that's disruptive innovation and what it is and what it isn't. disruptive innovation, you might think of, say, for example, Uber as being a disruptive innovation, but it really isn't. It's been more of a evolution and improvement, more of a sustaining innovation, basically, in that it has improved the method of transportation. But what is truly disruptive is when what you've done with a new tool or a new service or a new offering is if you can now deliver that innovation to the masses, you basically are in the throes of a disruptive innovation. And so it's just kind of important to think about that. The reason being that for many of you, sustaining innovations are where you work. In fact, where you might be focusing right now. You're working on innovations that improve the current delivery, the current competitive advantage, improving processes, improving things. And so it's just the reason why this distinction is so important is that timing is everything. Don't start innovations too early necessarily. Basically start sustaining innovations, improving, and then get the momentum in, and then move into disruption. One real key point in all of this is accurately assessing your resources. The reason for this is that change agents are a very scarce resource, and you really want to make certain you have allocated your resources appropriately so you don't disrupt the great progress your sustaining innovations can take right now, while the disruptive innovation is taking time. A good reminder, it took Ford Motor Company 30 years to compete against the horse before it was available to everybody.
It's very important in client-facing innovation to understand exactly what the clients want. Don't make any assumptions. And so you not only have to communicate within your organization, but with the client. Everybody needs to be on the same page. You need to take a proactive approach and question everything that you've done in the past and decide whether or not you retain those processes or you think about better ways to do them. That will prevent you from going down the road and doing something and putting a lot of energy into it when the client says, no, we really don't care that much about it. Many times, corporate legal departments are sort of the stepchildren within their organizations, and IT and other support organizations don't understand their needs. And so it's the law firm that has an opportunity to provide leadership and guidance and help the corporate legal department improve their own processes, and thus improve the relationship with the law firm and draw them closer and perhaps expand their business opportunity with that client. So it is a very rich opportunity to improve the profitability of the law firm. And clients are much more data driven than many law firms. So the law firms are getting that way. So clients want to know how the change and how the innovation is impacting the business. So having dashboards, having KPIs and timelines and status reports and project management principles associated with these innovations not only helps you within the organization, but improves the relationship again with the client and proves the value of the change that you're bringing to their benefit. Sherry?
To that end, it's really critical. We all of us are problem solvers. I know there are a number of IT folks on the call today. We're all problem solvers, and we simply just solve the problem and get it done, right? We improve the process all the time. But the problem is we may not necessarily take a step back to establish what's the baseline. Like, where are we starting from? Is it a 4% improvement? Is it a 10% improvement we achieved? If you destroy the evidence, so to speak, without having measured the baseline of where you're starting, then you can't quite communicate the details and the data in the way that those KPIs are really going to benefit the firm. It's also important to identify what success actually looks like, because when you measure what matters, you really know what exactly is success. If we're successful, such and such a thing is going to be the reality. And so what we want to do is identify success, then we can adjust perceptions and then make it known. I think this is one of the main reasons why there is such focus and so many wonderful tools now available to do visualizations of this data. You know, Kurt mentioned data scientists being added to organizations. The key thing is going to be have the data that they gather and analyze tell the story. So again, you need to measure so that what you can do is to tell that story. So now is when Kurt and I are going to talk a little bit about the structured process and share with you a cool tool for that. I think that the number one, I almost want to say it's sort of the challenge of innovation. Again, as a former chief innovation officer of an organization, we often think, wow, you know, somebody has that job as an innovation specialist or CIO, and suddenly they're responsible for every single innovation that happens in the organization. But that's not quite the way that it works. What happens is that chief innovation officers, innovation specialists, those who are in the innovation practice area, so to speak, they own the process of innovation. They provide the methods that you use for measuring, the tools of communicating success. They make the organizational connections and champion all of those activities. But innovation isn't just their job. It's really everyone's job, because these initiatives are being driven by your firm's leadership, and they're required for your business. And frankly, at the very start, we said they're required and demanded by your clients. One comment I do want to make is that I am seeing so many embedded innovation specialists, practice-specific innovation roles within communities of work inside and around the organizations. And it's wonderful, because what they are is they're knowledgeable about that particular kind of work. They can channel not only the innovation within, but they can work so nicely as liaison to the innovation office. So again, just a key point. Kurt?
As Sherry said, it's not, there might be somebody who owns the process, but it takes a village to get it done. Having multiple types of individuals with different skill sets and different insights is key to being innovative. That diversity of thought is so paramount to coming up with the right solution and the best solution, and people being open to the thoughts of others. There's nothing better than building a solution and a collective effort and having everybody contribute to it and feeling as though we all succeeded together. It's a very powerful feeling. And so you have to not just take the innovation people, or not just the KM people, or not just the IT people, but it has to embrace everything. And that's one of the beauties of what we're seeing in the profession now, is lawyers recognizing that they have to come up with innovative solutions for their clients. So, and knowing that they can't do it on their own. So building teams within their organizations is really a rewarding experience for everybody. And I think it's having a fundamental change on the way that law firms do their business. So now we want to provide you with a great tool for doing this within your own organization. And it's not something that we came up with. This is provided courtesy of Professor Bill Henderson from the University of Indiana. Bill is a well-known speaker and innovator in the legal profession, providing consulting services to law firms and other organizations that want to introduce these sorts of innovative practices to their firms. And he's come up with this framework for deciding how law firms should focus on their innovation efforts. It creates, according to Bill, it creates a faster, more direct, and less risky path to innovation adoption. And we think once you start digging into it, you'll find it to be a great tool as well, and recommend it for your organizations. Sherry?
Yeah, I wanted to call to your attention this last category, because I think we've all been in this particular place, right? Where certain change efforts are destined to succeed or destined to fail around these different parameters. And I particularly loved, the time and energy of the change agent. They're scarce resources. So engaging opinion leaders in the most efficient path to system-wide success is one of the ways that you're going to measure success. So again, it's a wonderful worksheet and to help innovators avoid failure.
All right, so now time for questions. We are short on time, but we do have a couple. The first one is, how do we get input from our clients when the lawyers won't let us meet with them?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, isn't it? That's a huge challenge. The way that I've been able to do it in the past, and what limited success I've had, is that it's really about communication with the lawyer who manages that client relationship and trying to get them to understand that it's really important that we fully collaborate with the client to understand their needs. And it's probably going to include more than the lawyers in the legal department. It's going to include their IT people and other people within their organization who are involved in what we're trying to achieve. So you can cite other examples. There's plenty to be found in the press and in webinars such as this and seminars, other organizations who've gone through this. And then unfortunately, sometimes the lawyer just still says, no, I'll handle it. And they come back with answers, and then you keep coming back like, well, okay, here's more questions. We wish you would have asked this, this, and this. We really need this information. And once the lawyer understands, like, oh, I can't do this all by myself, you've got a chance to get involved in the process as well. So there's no great answer to this, but persistence, I think, is the key.
Great, thanks. And then our final question is, can Latera help us with our technology innovation and adoption initiatives?
Absolutely, Allison. In fact, in this last year, our organization grew its adoption team and its adoption resources, and also married together those innovations and thoughts that you all have just listened to. And so when we implement services like our transaction management solution, you're at the ready. We have resources, whether those be change agents or whether those be our change agents educating yours. You are well supported with resources to achieve the good end. And so those would be some of them. I think another really recent addition to our adoption and innovation would be how we're now communicating directly with our clients and gathering feedback. So just to the image of the picture you see here, lots of questions, spurn ideas. And that also is keeping the innovation engine going. So with that, we thank you all for attending today, but wish to equally tell you about some of the resources that influenced what we shared. These links are active in your PDF, so please be sure to download that and grab that. One particular item I want to call to your attention here is the link to Bill Henderson's site, who had that scorecard there, and that last blog as well. The Fringe Legal podcast, by the way, is from our own AB, so please listen to that. And these are fascinating, isn't it, Kurt? We now have whole books about legal innovation, one that is about to be published. So check these titles out. They're very, very good. And finally, we're going to be in New York at Legal Week. So come visit us at booth 423. Come join us at our next webinars, January 23rd and 30th. We are sponsors of the Document Excellence Group. We want to make sure all of you know to register and let your colleagues know. We've got a couple meetings coming up and a webinar. So I think with that, Kurt, I'll toss it back to you.
All right, I just want to have one minute story that I take from outside the legal profession that has an impact on how you might think about innovation. You've probably heard about Six Sigma or continuous improvement plans. There's another term that's been used for this, the aggregation of marginal gains. And there's a gentleman named David Brailsford, who's head of the British racing team, the British cycling team. And he took over that team in 2002, and he started a process where they analyzed everything they did, every single thing that they did. So of course they looked at training methodologies, they looked at nutrition, they looked at the bikes, they looked at their uniforms and made lots of small improvements, but they went well beyond that. So the one that I like the most is they figured out what was going to be the best pillow and the best mattress for everybody on the team to sleep better, because sleep was key to recovery and better performance. And they brought their pillows and their mattresses with them wherever they went all around the world. And they also did things like paint the floor of their shops white so they could see dirt and make it a cleaner environment so there'd be less trouble with the bikes down the line. So they made all of these little tiny changes, improved 100 things, 1%, and very quickly they became the dominant racing team in the world. They've been the leaders in the past 3 Olympics, and the British racing team has won 7 out of the past 8 Tour de France races, which is the pinnacle of bicycle racing. So this aggregation of marginal gains, it's something that's in each little segment is not all that exciting, but taken collectively, it's quite a powerful impact. So it's something for all of us to think about. Don't look to hit a home run with every innovation thing you do. Make little bitty gains, and pretty soon you will be knocking the ball out of the park. So thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we're appreciative of your business as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.